Welcome back to this topic on what is protecting your liver. So let's start with number two here. I always start with number two in discussions. So let's start with number two here. Number two is your small intestine. This is where things get absorbed. Very small, thin walls in the small intestine. A 20 feet small intestine. Except you had some other issues, generally around that 20 feet small intestine. Things came out from the top here, which comes from the stomach, which is number one, the acidic stomach. But things are entered here and they start absorbing when they are digested and they get into this bloodstream here. If you zoom into the bloodstream, you'll see the particles of what's absorbed. You are not going to see food particles. You have to zoom in here with a microscope to see glucose, which is the little yellow ones, amino acids from, let's say you eat something that had amino acids going in, you have fatty acids, you have vitamins, minerals, and there are some black little ones here, which is actually the spores of molds and fungus and the endotoxins of bacteria and, well, bacteria feces and stuff like that is going up here. So you move up that ladder and you end up in the liver, and so the liver manages everything. Now everything that happens, the circulatory system, I would make it into a color of choice. This is Canva software, so I'm using Canva software here, a trial. Thank you Canva for a trial of 30 days. So this is the provision here of what is called clean blood. Okay, when I say clean blood, I'm simply speaking about blood that the liver would have maybe checked and balanced, so we could say methylate the vitamins that's coming in and checking out B12 and making sure it's a okay B12 to put into the circulation. So things coming from here doesn't go into the circulation, it goes to the liver for checks and balances. Of course, they say there is a rule where fatty acids goes into the lymphatic system and gets from the lymphatic system back into the cervical vein, subclavian vein, and then back into the circulatory system, some way, something like that. However, generally, this is what's happening. Generally, from a conceptual level, this red blood thing here we call portal vein goes up to the liver checks it out. So all the little bacteria nonsense, like we call it bacteria endotoxins, and all the other things you eat, let's say you eat some plastic, which you generally do eat with your food. Forgive me if you take offense to this, but this happens. All these things end up here in the liver. And what happens? The liver now says, oh my goodness, I don't want this, so I would push this out into the bile. You see this little thing here, the green gallbladder? It pushes it here. Now, in order, I would have said this several times, from my observation of this story, in order for things to get out of the liver and not become a burden to the liver, you need to supply enough nutrients so that the liver could pull these things out and put it into bile. The liver just cannot take a bad substance and throw it into bile, because the liver is your protection of your life. It does not take waste and throw into your bile, because it knows that the waste would end up back down here, because eventually the bile comes back down here through the duodenum. So the liver has to convert these things, and it needs nutrients. So the liver depends on your body to have nutrients to detoxify, at least at that level, and even further deeper into the cells. Albeit, if everything is okay, it goes to the red blood, it goes to the pipe, the liver releases things to the pipe, and that goes to your cells. We'll get to that in the next lesson. What is protecting the liver? What is protecting the liver starts number one, the acidic stomach. If this is spelled correctly, I don't know, it doesn't look right, but this is your number one for health. Your liver is number one inside your body. This is number one to make things get into your body. If this guy loses its power of acidity, and how could it lose its power of acidity? I would have presented yesterday. If you looked at that video, these are the things that cause different levels of effect on acidity. If you are eating a plant-based diet, your carbohydrates over time, the epigenetic environment in your stomach, in your acidic stomach, gets to a state where it does not have that pH 1 and 2. It might be pH 3, 4. And that is a dangerous thing, because the protection of everything after, you see from here called the duodenum, depends on this here having stomach acid pH 1 or 2. Even though this acid is a burst of acid, boom, for a few minutes to sterilize the incoming bacteria, and when it comes down here, it does a little more with the bile releasing other bile juices and the pancreas releasing pancreatic juices, you get a wonderful sense of protection from the liver protector, which is your acidic stomach. Taking care of your stomach here by getting it to be acidic is the protection for the liver. Because when you protect your acid levels in the stomach and you're digesting your amino acids out of your protein, or you're getting dipeptides and tripeptides well broken down, and it goes down to here, number 2, the small intestine, you have amino acids flowing through the blood. Glucose is very easy to digest. In fact, amylase is even in the mouth, in your saliva, so you don't have to bother. Glucose, although it brings in bacteria, once the stomach here, glucosaces such as carbohydrates, once it comes in, there is a little, according to this research here, they said there is a little burst of acid. There's a relatively neutral effect on the stomach pH. Now, complex carbohydrates has minimal effect on stomach secretion, but that's why in the morning your stomach is very acidic after the fast. You're breaking the fast. That's when you should be having your plants anyhow, and that should kill out the gut bacteria and save you again back to the acidic stomach. When you eat meats, the stomach naturally has fats and protein, or meats which would have fats, protein base, which would cause the stomach to go up, shoot up in acid, and keep the stomach acidic for 2 to 3 hours, killing all things inside here that are not supposed to be here, and also protecting the gallbladder by the fats telling the gallbladder squeeze out some bile, and telling the pancreas squeeze out some other enzymes, so that you have a better enzymatic reaction down the road, which is here, number 2. Number 3 is your waste disposal management system, where garbage that left from the second part here, which is called the small intestine, and came down here, is supposed to be dumped. But there are sometimes in the dumping process you have some fermentation that takes place here, and during the fermentation process some fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids, gets created, and that goes back up into the lymphatic system, or maybe directly to the colonic cells. Whatever happens here, there are even good things in the garbage, and then you dump all the rest. But you eat to make sure that the stomach is acidic. It's your protection for the liver. Thank you for viewing. Hope you will come back another time, question me, and answer these questions for yourself. What protects the liver?